We are live.
Only for the second time of 2024, we are back. And none of it was Richard's fault. Every bit of it was my family's fault. I'm blaming them. I throw them under the bus between sick kids, schools being closed for bad weather, my daughter getting out early for exams. Why they have to take tests, I don't know. But Mondays and Fridays, it's me and Richard again, and I've missed him greatly. I am old new dude. He is,
Richard York, Asher's trueborn son.
and I've like I said, man, I've missed you. What's he say?
Krista is waving from the wall, and Lady Thistle says she's slightly nodding at you from across an empty room. All right.
Even though
All right,
it's
so
a Tyrion chapter, there's some things that Richard wants to talk about too.
yeah, I'd like to mention some of the things about the live stream that came up with during the live stream. Well, first off, I should probably say see Triple Triggers episodes 1 and 2. But anyway. So Preston points out that Dany was officially born the day of the storming of Dragonstone, and so if the reason that people in Westeros believes that she's called the Stormborn is that she was born just before the storming of Dragonstone, then the quote of we speak of Rhaegar's sister, born on Dragonstone before its fall, the one they called Daenerys, the Stormborn. I recall her now. So he's being reminded of why she's called the Stormborn.
Okay.
She was born right before the storming of Dragonstone, which this is Preston's take anyway, and
Yeah.
so it's kind of like the R plus L equals J quote of we see that as Ned thinking about losing the highborn status, the trueborn highborn status of his kids that have the trueborn highborn status, and therefore he couldn't possibly think of murdering a child to protect Jon from something he doesn't have. Right? Jon should be left out of that equation, and similarly, this actually fits with Preston's interpretation of what Stormborn means, right?
Mm-hmm.
I can't believe we never said that. Oh yeah, actually you did at one point. I think you said 1 through 7 because you couldn't remember which episode.
Yeah. I said 1 through 7 because I said Richard could tell you exactly which number it is.
Yep. The Mother Baggett says, lurking in the shadows and happily watching my friends. That's too odd. And that felt right.
Hey,
okay, yeah, that's good, says the Mother of Baggett. All right. So I did want to mention that. And then the exact words describing Diana Reed are actually Diana of the Crannogmen. So, I mean, it doesn't sound like that's because she married into the Crannogmen. It sounds like that's because she's from the Crannogmen. That's the appendix of Dance, by the way, if you're looking for it, which is not in the Search of Ice and Fire. So you won't find her in a Search of Ice and Fire.
Right. On the Diana of the Crannogmen, I don't think she's a Crannogman, or I don't think she's married to Howland Reed or anything. But I will point out that.
Sorry. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, sorry. That George hides stuff in the oddest ways and takes our assumptions and uses them against us.
Right. So if he could word it in such a way that it kind of implied, but was actually the marriage. Yeah, absolutely, I get that. And speaking of which, you sort of mentioned Adam Feldman. You didn't say Adam Feldman, but we've talked about how Adam Feldman has discussed how he's. Oh, actually, let's read the quote. So I got the quote of George on Adam Feldman, right, where he goes. So he was asked about Adam Feldman's essays on Marine, and he said, I read those when someone pointed them out to me, and I was really pleased with them because at least one guy got it. He got it completely. He knew exactly what I was trying to do there, and evidently I did it well enough for people who were paying attention, right? And so the very first essay at the beginning of that one, he talks about how he agreed with all the criticisms initially of A Dance with Dragons and the Marine plotline in particular, and he goes, in particular, the Marine plotline is quite, and he goes, in particular, the Marine plotline is quite ingeniously constructed by Martin to mislead fans in certain ways. Often the truth there is the opposite of what appears on the surface, right? And so your point was that he couldn't figure it out until he realized, no, it's misleading you. It's not what it appears, right? And of course he's the one that talks about how Dario represents represents war and fire and blood and so forth, and his star represents peace, and that Dany's doing everything right but is not satisfying to her or the reader because peace isn't as satisfying as choosing the war option, and that's what these books are really all about. Is how most of some of the most epic moments that feel so good are actually when the characters are making the mistakes of choosing war, right?
Right.
And
war
anyway,
reads better too.
one other thing is, I've started to get into Gene Wolfe, and I've been listening to the Gene Wolfe, the Rereading Wolfe podcast. And one thing that really jumped out at me is one of their early episodes, they bring on, well, first off, Gene Wolfe is, according to George's blog post on the death of Gene Wolfe was one of George's two mentors from his writer's workshop days. And anyway, they brought in one of the first, so that's kind of why we should care, right? Because he kind of taught George, right? So one of the first experts that they brought in said that Gene Wolfe's mysteries usually have a surface reading interpretation and then a deeper rereading interpretation that completely contradicted this initial surface read. And then on further rereads, an even deeper interpretation where the surface interpretation was almost correct and much closer to the truth than the first contradictory rereading interpretation. So if George is also doing that, John should be not quite Ned and Ashar's bastard, but somewhat more similar to that than to R plus L equals J. And similarly, Sweet Robin might be the seed that is strong, but not quite as John Aaron's son, right?
Right.
Anyway, just something that kind of jumped out at me is, oh yeah, that is what's going on. Anyway, let's get to it. Storm 32, Tyrion 4, 2 swords.
That's what she said.
Mother Roy says just back from hematologist, blood levels improving. Well, that's good news.
Oh, congratulations. Please keep us informed.
Nothing remained beyond the King's Gate but mud and ashes and bits of burned bone, yet already there were people living in the shadow of the city walls and others selling fish from barrows and barrels. Tyrion felt their eyes on him as he rode past, chilly eyes, angry and unsympathetic. No one dared speak to him or try to bar his way, not with Bronn beside him in oiled black mail. If I were alone, though, they would pull me down and smash my face in with cobblestone as they did for Preston Greenfield. Mother Baggins says, plot twists. Jon Snow is Cersei and Robert's son.
Hey, now, on that note, when I first watched season 1 and I saw Jon's black hair, I thought that, okay, he was a son of Robert's that Ned had taken in for whatever reason. And then Chris is like, no, you probably need to read the books. There's more to it. And then I'm like, okay, then once I looked past season 1, I got hooked. But it always struck me as odd as why George made them give Jon black hair. That was one of his instructions for them, his requirements for them. Jon Snow's to have black hair, and I could never figure out why he would do that. And
hi, Bearmere. Yeah.
Hey, Bearmere.
Bearmere's waving at us. Yeah, one of the things that I probably should have also mentioned is we like to say, or at least I like to say, and I think you agree with me. I believe George wants there to be multiple interpretations. He wants there to be mysteries, and he wants some of those to remain and to be valid, and that he considers there to be therefore multiple correct interpretations. And so him confirming one interpretation is correct wouldn't necessarily invalidate an alternative interpretation.
It's not the correct interpretation until George verifies it in the books.
Yep. And
until he decides what he wants to do with the story, until he decides what he wants. Go ahead.
Well, I was just going to say, him telling you that him telling the app designer that the character who never carries money, never pays for anything, and orders people around was the one that hired the cat's paw, or him confirming them when they assume that that's true, or him confirming that the showrunners are correct with Lyanna as Jon's mother. I do believe with the information that people had, that was something that he considered to be a correct interpretation. I just don't think it's the only correct interpretation.
Yep. Alternative facts.
Nothing remained. Well, I mean, neither of those are facts. That's kind of the point, right? They're inferences.
Yeah.
Therefore, anyway, we already did this. Nothing remained. Where was I? Okay, Preston Greenfield. They come back quicker than the rats, he complained. We burned them out once. You'd think they'd take that as a lesson. Give me a few dozen gold cloaks and I'll kill them all, said Braun. Once they're dead, they don't come back. No, but others come in their places. Leave them be. But if they start throwing up hovels against the wall again, pull them down at once. The war's not done yet, no matter what these fools may think. I've seen enough for now. We'll return on the morrow with the guildmasters to go over their plans. Well, I burned most of this. I suppose it's only just that I rebuilt it. That task was to have been his uncle's, but solid, steady, tireless Sir Kevin Lannister had not been himself since the Raven had come from Riverrun with word of his son's murder. Willem's twin Martin had been taken captive by Robb Stark as well, and their elder brother Lancel was still abed, beset by an ulcerating wound that would not heal. With one son dead and two more in mortal danger, Sir Kevin was consumed by grief and fear. Lord Tywin had always relied on his brother, but now he had no choice but to turn again to his dwarf son. Has Tyrion finally figured out that Tywin relies on Kevin?
I think it is a bit of I don't know if it's hidden fingers or fate or a plot device or anything, but something happens to Kevin to where Tyrion is thrust into the spotlight once more.
Maybe he needed to be. Yeah, that's possible. Yeah. That's interesting. Yeah, I like that. It's all part of God's plan, or the old God's plan anyway, or Bran's plan, which all might be the same thing. The cost of rebuilding was going to be ruinous, but there was no help for that. King's Landing was the realm's principal harbor, rivaled only by Old Town. The river had to be reopened, and the sooner the better. Where am I going to find the bloody coin? It was almost enough to make him miss Littlefinger, who had sailed north a fortnight past. While he beds Lysa Arryn and rules the Vale beside her, I get to clean up the mess he left behind him. Though at least his father was giving him significant work to do. He won't name me heir to Castle Rock, but he'll make use of me wherever he can, Tyrion thought, as a captain of Goldcloaks waved them through the mudgate. The three whores still dominated the market square inside the gate. They stood idle now, and the boulders and barrels of pitch had all been trundled away. There were children climbing the towering wooden structures, swarming up like monkeys in rough spun, perched on the throwing arms and hooted at each other. Remind me to tell Sir Adam to post some gold cloaks here, Tyrion told Broad as they rode between two of the trebuchets. Some fool boys like to fall off and break his back. There was a shot from above, and a clod of manure exploded in the ground a foot in front of them. Tyrion's mare reared and almost threw him. On second thoughts, he said when he had the horse in hand, let the poxy brats splatter on the cobbles like overripe melons. He was in a black mood, and not just because a few street urchins wanted to pelt him with dung. His marriage was a daily agony. Sansa Stark remained a maiden, and half the castle seemed to know it. When they'd saddled up this morning, he'd heard two of the stable boys sniggering behind his back. He could almost imagine that the horses were sniggering as well. He'd risked his skin to avoid the bedding ritual, hoping to preserve the privacy of his bedchamber, but that hope had been dashed quick enough. Either Sansa had been stupid enough to confide in one of her bedmaids, every one of whom was a spy for Cersei, or Varys and his little birds were to blame. What difference did it make? They were laughing at him all the same. The only person in the Red Keep who didn't seem to find his marriage a source of amusement was his lady wife. Sansa's misery was deepening every day. Tyrion would gladly have broken through her courtesy to give her what solace he might, but it was no good. No words would ever make him fair in her eyes, or any less a Lannister. This was the wife they'd given him for all the rest of his life, and she hated him.
Hey, I know it's weird thoughts that pop in my head, but they are climbing one of the three whores or all three, whatever. Where the hell they get the dung from?
Yeah, they had to carry it up there. That's kind of funny.
Were they like monkeys up there, just like grabbing their hand and throw it down?
Yeah, that's a good point.
Okay, that's what popped in my head when that went through. Sorry.
And Lizzie says it's the Bran plan as far as God's plan. And their nights together in the great bed were another source of torment. He could no longer bear to sleep naked as had been his custom. His wife was too well trained ever to say an unkind word, but the revulsion in her eyes whenever she looked on his body was more than he could bear. Tyrion had commanded Sansa to wear a sleeping shift as well. I want her, he realized. I want Winterfell, yes, but I want her as well. Child or woman or whatever she is. I want to comfort her. I want to hear her laugh. I want her to come to me willingly, to bring me her joys and her sorrows and her lust. His mouth twisted in a bitter smile. Yes, and I want to be tall as Jaime and as strong as Sir Gregor the Mountain, too, for all the bloody good it does. Unbidden, his thoughts went to Shay. Tyrion had not wanted her to hear the news from any lips but his own, so he commanded Varys to bring her to him the night before his wedding. They met again in the eunuch's chambers, and when Shay began to undo the laces of his jerkin, he'd caught her by the wrist and pushed her away. Wait, he said, there's something you must hear. On the morrow I'm to be wed.
Oh,
Sansa did not know, not then. Could you know? Did Varys tell you? Some page was telling Sir Talon about it when I took Lawless to the Sept. He had it from the serving girl who heard Sir Kevin talking to your father. She wriggled free of his grasp and pulled her dress up over her head. As ever, she was naked underneath. I don't care. She's only a little girl. You give her a big belly and come back to me. So I think this is a lie. I think she's either Tywin's or Littlefinger's, and I'm not sure those are mutually exclusive.
yeah. Well, like Littlefinger, he uses other people's wants and desires and tools to his advantage as well. So chances are Shay was a plant provided by Littlefinger for Tyrion or for Tywin, thinking that Tywin thinks that she belongs to him, but in fact she belongs to Littlefinger.
Right, right. Sense. Yeah, that does make sense. Thistle says that noting that Sansa is still not good at hiding her feelings on her face, just want to take that knowledge forward to the Vale plot later. Yeah, that's a good point. There, that was your moment, Tyrion. When she didn't care, you should have known. Yep. Yeah, exactly. That's a good point. That's a good point, Lizzie. Right. The fact that Shay doesn't care whatsoever. Yep. And of course, given that we know that she's going to wind up in Tywin's bed, sits inside her own head. I'm so sneaky. Given that we know that she's going to wind up in Tywin's bed, I do think it makes even more sense for her to be Tywin's than Littlefinger's. Sansa talking to Randa, who Jon Snow? To Randa, who? Jon Snow? Yes, exactly. Well, she didn't tell her, you're going to tell me all your secrets. And then she promptly does, basically. Some part of him had hoped for less indifference. Had hoped, he jeered bitterly, but now you know better, dwarf. Shay is all the love you're ever like to have. Shocked face. Muddy Way was crowded, but soldiers and townfolk alike made way for the imp and his escort. Hollow-eyed children swarmed underfoot, some looking up in silent appeal, whilst others begged noisily. Tyrion pulled a big fistful of coppers from his purse and tossed them in the air. The children went running for them, shoving and shouting. The lucky ones might be able to buy a heel of stale bread tonight. He'd never seen markets so crowded, and for all the food the Tyrells were bringing in, prices remained shockingly high. 6 coppers for a melon, a silver stag for a bushel of corn, a dragon for a side of beef, or 6 skinny piglets. Yet there seemed no lack of buyers. Gaunt men and haggard women crowded around every wagon and stall, while others, even more ragged, looked on sullenly from the mouths of alleys. This way, Bronn said when they reached the foot of the hook, if you still mean to. I do. The riverfront had made a convenient excuse, but Tyrion had another purpose today. It was not a task he relished, but it must be done. They turned away from Aegon's high hill into the maze of smaller streets that clustered around the foot of Visenya's. Bronn led the way. Once or twice, Tyrion glanced back over his shoulder to see if they were being followed, but there was nothing to be seen except the usual rabble. A carter beating his horse, an old woman throwing night soil from her window, 2 little boys fighting with sticks, 3 goldcloaks escorting a captive. They all looked innocent, but any one of them could be his undoing. Varys had informers everywhere. They turned at a corner, and again at the next, and rode slowly through a crowd of women at a well. Bronn led him along a curving wind, through an alley, under a broken archway. They cut through the rubble where a house had burned and walked their horses up a shallow flight of stone steps. The buildings were close and poor. Bronn halted at the mouth of a crooked alley too narrow for 2 to ride abreast. There was 2 jags and then a dead end. The sink is in the cellar of the last building. Tyrion swung down off his horse. See that no one enters or leaves till I return. This won't take long. His hand went into his cloak to make certain the gold was still there in the hidden pocket. 30 dragons. Bloody fortune for a man like him. He waddled up the alley quickly, anxious to be done with this. Bronn is such a value added. LOL. Pay him enough and give him the men. He'll impregnate the bitch, kill all the peasants, and be a thorn in your sister's ass for life. The wine sink was a dismal place, dark and damp, walls pale with niter, the ceiling so low that Bronn would have had to duck to keep from hitting his head on the beams. Tyrion Lannister had no such problem. At this hour, the front room was empty, but for a dead-eyed woman who sat on a stool behind a rough plank bar. She handed him a cup of sour wine and said, In the back. The back room was even darker. A flickering candle burned on a low table beside a flagon of wine. The man behind it scarce looked a danger, a short man, though all men were tall to Tyrion, with thin brown hair, pink cheeks, and a little pot pushing at the bone buttons of his doeskin jerkin. In his soft hands he held a 12-stringed wood harp more deadly than a longsword. Tyrion sat across from him. Simon Silvertongue. The man inclined his head. He was bald on top. My lord Hand, he said. You mistake me. My father is the king's hand. I am no longer even a figure, I fear. You shall rise again, I am sure. A man like you. My sweet lady Shay tells me you are newly wed. Would you had sent for me earlier. I should have been honored to sing at your feast. My wife needs us more songs, said Tyrion. As for Shay, we both know she's no lady, and would thank you never to speak her name aloud. As the hand commands, Simon said. The last time Tyrion had seen the man, Simon said kind of sounds like a certain game, but anyway, last time Tyrion had seen the man, a sharp word had been enough to set him sweating, but it seemed the singer had found some courage somewhere, most like in that flagon, or perhaps Tyrion himself was to blame for this new boldness. I threatened him, and nothing ever came of the threat, so now he believes me toothless. He sighed. I've told you are a very gifted singer. You're most kind to say so, my lord. Tyrion gave him a smile. I think it's time you brought your music to the free cities. They're great lovers of song in Bravos and Pentos and lists, and generous with those who please them. He took a sip of wine. It was foul stuff, but strong. A tour of all 9 cities would be best. You wouldn't want to deny anyone the joy of hearing you sing. A year in each should suffice. He reached inside his cloak to where the gold was hidden. With the port closed, you'll need to go to Duskendale to take ship, but my man Braun will find a horse for you, and I'd be honored if you would let me pay your passage. But my lord, the man objected, you've never heard me sing. Pray listen a moment. The stringers moved deftly over the strings of the wood harp, and soft music filled the cellar. Simon began to sing. He rode through the streets of the city, down from his hot hill on high. O'er the wines and the steps and the cobbles, he rode to a woman's sigh. For she was a secret treasure, she was his shame and his bliss, and a chain and a keep are nothing compared to a woman's kiss. There's more, the man said as he broke off. Oh, a good deal more. The refrain is especially nice, I think. For hands of gold are always cold, but a woman's hands are warm. Enough. Tyrion slid his fingers from his cloak, empty. That's not a song I would care to hear again, ever. No? Simon Silvertongue put his harp aside and took a sip of wine. A pity. Still, each man has his song, as my old master used to say when he was teaching me to play. Others might like my tune better. The Queen, perhaps, or your Lord Father. Bard, 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 says Chris. I
am so glad that you are the one that does singing.
I've never found a really good rendition of that. I listened to Ed Sheeran's extended version of his version of that.
Yeah.
And I listened to was it David Reads a Song of Ice and Fire? I don't know. I'm not thrilled with this song personally.
Yeah.
I'm sure Tyrion won't stew over this.
Lizzie off the top rope.
I love it. Tyrion rubbed the scar over his nose and said, my father has no time for singers, and my sister is not as generous as one might think. A wise man could earn more from silence than from song. He could not put it much plainer than that. Simon seemed to take his meaning quick enough. You'll find my price modest, my lord. That's good to know. This would not be a matter of 30 golden dragons, Tyrion feared. Tell me. At King Joffrey's wedding feast, the man said, there's to be a tournament of singers, and jugglers and jesters and dancing bears. Only one dancing bear, my lord. Everybody seems to know about this. Anyway, said Simon, who had plainly attended Cersei's arrangements with far more interest than Tyrion had. But 7 singers. Galleon of Coy, I don't know. Bethany Fairfingers, Aemon Costain, Alaric of Ison, Hamish the Harper, Colio Quainus, and Orland of Oldtown will compete for a gilded lute with silver strings. Yet unaccountably, no invitation has been forthcoming for one who is master of them all. Let me guess, Simon Silvertongue? I think he's cooking up a great revenge plan. Simon smiled modestly. I'm prepared to prove the truth of my boast before king and court. Hamish is old and oft forgets what he's singing. And Colio with that absurd Taroshi accent? If you understand 1 word in 3, count yourself fortunate. My sweet sister has arranged the feast. Even if I could secure you this invitation, it might look queer. 7 kingdoms, 7 vows, 7 challenges, 77 dishes, but 8 singers? What would the High Septon think? You did not strike me as a pious man, my lord. Piety is not the point. Certain forms must be observed. Simon took a sip of wine. Still, a singer's life is not without peril. We ply our trade at alehouses and wine sinks before unruly drunkards. If one of your sister's 7 should suffer some mishap, I hope you might consider me to fill his place. He smiled slyly, inordinately pleased with himself. 6 singers would be as unfortunate as 8, to be sure. I'll inquire after the health of Circe's 7. If any of them should be indisposed, my man Braun will find you. Very good, my lord. Simon might have left it at that, but flushed with triumph, he added, I shall sing the night of King Joffrey's wedding. Should it happen that I am called to court, why, I will want to offer the king my very best compositions, songs I've sung 1,000 times that are certain to please. If I should find myself singing in some dreary wine sink, though, well, that would be an apt occasion to try my new song. For hands of gold are always cold, but a woman's hands are warm. That will not be necessary, said Tyrion. You have my word as a Lannister. Bronn will call upon you soon. Just so. Very good, my lord. The balding, kettle-bellied singer took up his wood harp again. Bronn was waiting with horses at the mouth of the alley. He helped Tyrion into his saddle. When do I take the man to Duskendale? You don't, Tyrion turned his horse. Give him 3 days, then inform him that Hamish the harper has broken his arm. Tell him that his clothes will never serve for court, so he must be fitted for new garb at once. He'll come with you quick enough. He grimaced. You may want his tongue. I understand it's made of silver. The rest of him should never be found. Bronn grinned. There's a pot shop I know in Fleabottom makes a savory bowl of brown. All kinds of meat in it, I hear. Make certain I never eat there. Tyrion spurred to a trot. He wanted a bath, and the hotter the better. Thistle says the poor guy should have tried learning to sing the Rains of Cassimere. He might still be singing it today. Even that modest pleasure was denied him, however. No sooner had he returned to his chambers than Podrick Payne informed him that he'd been summoned to the Tower of the Hand. His lordship wants to see you. The Hand, Lord Tywin. I recall who the Hand is, Pod, Tyrion said. I lost my nose, not my wits. Bronn laughed. Don't bite the boy's head off now. Why not? He never uses it. Tyrion wondered what he'd done now, or more like what I have failed to do. A summons from Lord Tywin always had teeth. His father never sent for him just to share a meal or a cup of wine, that was for certain. Lizzie says, and he forages. Say what you will about Bronn. He's a provider. As he entered his Lord Father's solar a few moments later, he heard a voice saying, Cherry wood for the scabbards, bound in red leather and ornamented with a row of lion's head studs in pure gold, perhaps with garnets for the eyes. Rubies, Lord Tywin said. Garnets lack the fire. But rubies have Rhaegar's fire and blood appropriate for the wielders. See Triple Targaryen's episode 5. Tyrion cleared his throat. My lord, you sent for me? His father glanced up. I did. Come have a look at this. A bundle of oilcloth lay on the table between them, and Lord Tywin had a longsword in his hand. A wedding gift for Joffrey, he told Tyrion. The light streaming through the diamond-shaped panes of glass made the blade shimmer black and red as Lord Tywin turned it to inspect the edge, while the pommel and crossguard flamed gold. With this fool's jabber of Stannis and his magic sword, it seemed to me that we had best give Joffrey something extraordinary as well. A king should bear a kingly weapon. That's much too much sword for Joff, Tyrion said. He'll grow into it. Here, feel the weight of it. He offered the weapon hilt first. The sword was much lighter than he'd expected. As he turned it in his hand, he saw why. Only one metal could be beaten so thin and still have strength enough to fight with, and there was no mistaking those ripples, the mark of steel that had been folded back on itself many thousands of times. Valyrian steel? Yes, Lord Tywin said in a tone of deep satisfaction. Lizzie said 3. Always come with teeth. Then the swords. Hey, nice one, George. At long last, father, Valyrian steel blades were scarce and costly, yet thousands remained in the world, perhaps 200 in the 7 kingdoms alone. Thousands in the world, but 2 in Westeros implies more than 90% are in the other continents, presumably mostly Essos. And thousands seems like a lot of blades. I think I've always focused on that 200 number and never really stopped to consider that there's thousands.
Well, you also got the 1,000 fiery hand. It's, I don't know,
but anyways,
popped in my head.
It's just the fact that there's thousands of Valyrian steel blades is just interesting to me.
Yeah.
It has always irked his father that none belonged to House Lannister. It's kind of hard to believe that he couldn't get somebody to sell when there's thousands of them. Anyway, The old kings of the Rock had owned such a weapon, but the great sword Brightroar had been lost when the second king Tommen carried it back to Valyria on his fool's quest. It never returned, nor had Uncle Gary, Jerry, I guess it's Jerry, I don't know, the youngest and most reckless of his father's brothers, who had gone seeking after the lost swords some 8 years past. So Uncle Jerry could still show up, or he could be pulled from the weeds of winter. Thrice at
Well,
least, Lord Tywin.
there is the theory that he's the Shrouded Lord.
Yep. Thrice at least, Lord Tywin had offered to buy Valyrian longswords from impoverished lesser houses, but his advances had always been firmly rebuffed. The little lordlings would gladly part with their daughters should a Lannister come asking, but they cherished their old family swords. Tyrion wondered where the metal for this one had come from. A few master armorers could rework old Valyrian steel, but the secrets of its making had been lost when the doom came to old Valyria. The colors are strange, he commented as he turned the blade in the sunlight. Most Valyrian steel was a gray so dark it looked almost black, as was true here as well, but blended into the folds was a red as deep as the gray. The two colors lapped over one another without ever touching, each ripple distinct like waves of night and blood upon some steely shore. How did you get this patterning? I've never seen anything like it.
Hey,
Yeah, go ahead.
I like that. Fire and blood, night and blood.
And of course, the colors are red and black. Yep.
Yeah.
And it's going to Jaime and Joffrey. Again, see Triple Tuckers episode 5. Anyway. Nor I, my lord, said the armorer. I confess, these colors were not what I intended. I did not know that I could duplicate them. Your lord father had asked for the crimson of your house, and it was that color I set out to infuse into the metal. But Valyrian steel is stubborn. These old swords remember, it is said. They do not change easily. I worked 100 spells and brightened the red time and time again, but always the color would darken as if the blade was drinking the sun from it. And some folds would not take the red at all, as you can see. If my lords of Lannister are displeased, I will of course try again as many times as you would require, but no need, Lord Tywin.
The sun.
Pardon me. No need, Lord Tywin said. This will serve. A crimson sword might flash prettily in the sun, but if truth be told, I like these colors better, said Tyrion. They have an ominous beauty, and they make this blade unique. There's no other sword like it in all the world, I should think. As if the blade is drinking the sun. So, yeah, I also noticed it. I think everybody does. So with the fire of Rhaegar's rubies and these colors of night and blood, Tyrion liking them could hint at Tyrion Targaryen. Of course, the swords are actually for Jaime, Joffrey, Brienne, and Tommen, so I'll stick with Triplet Targaryen episode 5. and of course, we prefer the Chimera interpretation of Tyrion Targaryen.
Without doubt.
So that he can be a Targaryen, he can be impressed with the colors of red and black, they can be appropriate for him, but he can still be Tywin's one and only trueborn son.
Yeah.
A fake Lightbringer might flash prettily in the sun. 4 and 5. Yeah, we do. Tyrion put down Joffrey's sword and took up the other. If there is one, the armorer bent over the table and unfolded a bundle of oilcloth to reveal second longsword. Tyrion put down Joffrey's sword and took up the other. If not twins, the two were at least close cousins. This one was thicker and heavier, a half-inch wider and 3 inches longer, but they shared the same fine, clean lines and the same distinctive color, the ripples of blood and night. 3 fullers, deeply incised, ran down the second blade from hilt to point. The king's sword had only 2. Joff's hilt was a good deal more ornate, the arms of its crossguard done as lion's paws with ruby claws unsheathed, but both swords had grips of finely tooled red leather and gold lion's heads for pommels. Magnificent! Even in the hands as unskilled as Tyrion's, the blade felt alive. I've never felt better balanced. So you've got this concept of a living sword as if soul trapped in it, like Stormbringer. I never thought about how Jon's eyes match the color of Valyrian steel, says Lady Thistle. Gray, yeah.
Gray,
okay.
Yeah. Hey, you hush your mouth.
I've never felt better balance. It is meant for my son. Your only son who holds it now. No need to ask which son. Tyrion placed Jaime's sword back on the table beside Joffrey's. Of course, I wonder if somehow this sword's going to wind up with Tyrion.
Yeah, I was thinking that myself.
Anyway, Tyrion placed Jaime's sword back on the table beside Joffrey's, wondering if Robb Stark would let his brother live long enough to wield it. Our father must surely think so, else why have this blade forged? A gray so dark it looks almost black. I think it's near exact wording.
You hush. I don't want to hear that kind of stuff. If you're not on my side, you're against me.
You have done good work, Master Mott, Lord Tywin told the armorer. My steward will see to your payment. And remember, rubies for the scabbards. I shall, my lord. You're most generous. The man folded the swords up in the oilcloth, tucked the bundle under one arm, and went to his knee. It's an honor to serve the king's hand. I shall deliver the swords the day before the wedding. See that you do. When the guards had seen the armorer out, Tyrion clambered up onto a chair. So, a sword for Joff, a sword for Jaime, and not even a dagger for the dwarf? Is that the way of it, father? The steel was sufficient for 2 blades, not 3. If you have need of a dagger, take one from the armory. Armor left 100 when he died. Jerian gave him a gilded dagger with an ivory grip and a sapphire pommel for a wedding gift, and half the envoys who came to court tried to curry favor by presenting his grace with jewel-encrusted knives and silver inlay swords. Tyrion smiled. They'd have pleased him more if they presented him with their daughters. No doubt. The only blade he ever used was the honey knife he had from Jon Arryn when he was a boy. Lord Tywin waved a hand, dismissing King Robert and all his knives. What did you find at the riverfront? I do think that kind of it kind of makes it weird that he brought his dagger that he had won from Littlefinger to Winterfell, but it also kind of makes it weird that I don't know, maybe it actually speaks to the idea that he would be Toodles and Illyria Mopartis think that that Robert sent the cat's paw, right? Because it's his dagger and he's a fool, and it's even implied that he's a fool with the way that when Dany asks Jorah, "Is Robert a fool?" He basically says yes, right? Mm-hmm. I mean, he says he should have been born Dothraki, but he's basically saying only a fool would do this, and then he says Robert would do it, right? And so this only a fool would do it. Robert would do it. Robert gets drunk. Robert forgets that he does things. It's referred to as a king's man, right? Yeah. He's the one that wanted Bran killed, not Joffrey, right? So anyway, so I get it. There are quite a few clues that kind of point in that direction, right? Yeah.
Also, think about this though. The death of Jon Arryn and the plot to get Ned and to King's Landing and to get him killed and everything would be like House Martell and Dorne. The long game. What if hey James Edward? I hope you're not working too hard today. What if the long game was that the knife was sent from the very beginning in the plan on using it somehow?
Littlefinger got it up there. Okay.
Exactly.
Interesting. Off today, yeah. Well, nice to see you.
Oh, wait, yeah, it is Friday. Duh. I'm sorry. I forgot. I know. Monday to Thursday, 10 hours a day. Probably longer sometimes. We appreciate the hard work you do, even though I don't live anywhere near you, but I appreciate it.
Always. What did you find at the riverfront? Mud, said Tyrion, and a few dead things no one's bothered to bury. Before we can open the port again, the Blackwater's going to have to be dredged. The sunken ship's broken up or raised. 3/4 of the quays need repair. Some may have to be torn down and rebuilt. The entire fish market is gone, and both the river gate and the King's Gate are splintered from the battering Stannis gave them and should be replaced. I shudder to think of the cost. If you do shit gold, father, find a privy and get busy, he wanted to say, but he knew better. You will find whatever gold is required. Love you, brother.
Yeah. Hey, man, I'm not on Twitter or X, whatever it's called, so I don't get to talk to you that much or ever. So I really do appreciate when you jump in so I can at least say, hey, how's the family? I know you love your family so deeply. I've told other people about how close you are with your family, how you feel. It's inspiring to see a father that loves his family as much as you do. So I really appreciate you. It gives us other fathers a role model, if you will.
Will I? Where? The treasury's empty. I've told you that. We're not done paying the alchemists for all that wildfire, or the smiths for my chain. And Cersei's pledged the crown to pay half the cost of Joff's wedding. 77 bloody courses, 1,000 guests, a pie full of doves, singers, jugglers. Extravagance has its uses. We must demonstrate the power and wealth of Casterly Rock for all the realm to see. Then perhaps Castle Rock should pay. Why? I've seen Littlefinger's accounts. Crown incomes are 10 times higher than they were under Ares. As are the crown's expenses. Barbara was as generous with his coin as he was with his cock. Littlefinger borrowed heavily, from you amongst others. Yes, the incomes are considerable, but they are barely sufficient to cover the usury on Littlefinger's loans. Will you forgive the throne's debt to House Lannister? Don't be absurd. Then perhaps 7 courses would suffice. 300 guests instead of 1,000. I understand the marriage can be just as binding without a dancing bear. Lady Thistle says, my heart. Choking me up, bro. I mean, it means so much. The Tyrells would think us miserly. I will have the wedding and the waterfront. If you cannot pay for them, say so, and I shall find a master coin who can. This grace of being dismissed after so short a time was not something Tyrion cared to suffer. I'll find your money. You will, his father promised. And while you're about it, see if you can find your wife's bed as well. So the talk has reached even him. I have, thank you. It's that piece of furniture between the window and the hearth, with the velvet canopy and the mattress stuffed with goose down. I am pleased you know of it. Now perhaps you ought to try and know the woman who shares it with you. Woman, child, you mean? Has a spider been whispering in your ear, or do I have my sweet sister to thank? Considering the things that went on beneath Cersei's blankets, you would think she'd have the decency to keep her nose out of his. Tell me, why is it that all of Sansa's maids are women in Cersei's service? I'm sick of being spied upon in my own chambers. If you mislike your wife's servants, dismiss them and hire ones more to your liking. That is your right. It is your wife's maidenhood that concerns me, not her maids. This delicacy puzzles me. You seem to have no difficulty betting whores. Is the Stark girl made differently? James sets a good example for mothers, too, killing it from all sides. Why do you take so much bloody interest in where I put my cock? Tyrion demanded. Sansa's too young. She's old enough to be Lady of Winterfell once her brother's dead. Claim her maidenhood, and you'll be one step closer to claiming the North. Get her with child, and the prize is all but won. Do I need to remind you that a marriage that has not been consummated can be set aside? By the High Septon or a Council of Faith. Our present High Septon is a trained seal who barks prettily on command. Moonboy is more like to annul my marriage than he is. So it sure sounds like Tyrion is married to Tysha, which would make his second marriage somewhat dubious. See, Triplet Targaryens, episode 1. You all are awesome. Gives me hope in our crazy world.
Thank you.
Perhaps I should have married Sansa Stark to Moonboy. He might have known what to do with her. Tyrion's hands clenched in the arms of his chair. I've heard all I mean to hear on the subject of my wife's maidenhead. But so long as we're discussing marriage, why is it that I hear nothing of my sister's impending nuptials? As I recall, Lord Tywin cut him off. Mace Tyrell has refused my offer to marry Cersei to his heir, Willis. Refused our sweet Cersei? That put Tyrion in a much better mood. When I first broached the match to him, Lord Tyrell seemed well enough disposed, his father said. A day later, all was changed. The old woman's work. She hectors her son unmercifully. Varys claims she told him that your sister was too old and too used for this precious one-legged grandson of hers. Cersei must have loved that, he laughed. Lord Tywin gave him a chilly look. She does not know, nor will she. It's better for all of us if the offer was never made. So you remember that, Tyrion. The offer was never made. What offer? Tyrion rather suspected that Lord Tyrell might come to regret this rebuff. So our characters are often wrong, but removing Cersei from King's Landing would have prevented quite a bit of misadventure. So in a way, I suppose he kind of does.
Well, her being there is what helps Varys and everybody else to undo.
It's what lets Marjorie get imprisoned, though, is my point, right?
Yeah, this is true.
Anyway. Your sister will be wed. The question is, to whom? I have several thoughts. Before he could get to them, there was a rap at the door, and a guardsman stuck in his head to announce Grand Maester Pycelle. He may enter, said Lord Tywin. Pycelle tottered in on a cane and stopped long enough to give Tyrion a look that would curdle milk. His once magnificent white beard, which someone had unaccountably shaved off, was growing back sparse and wispy, leaving him with unsightly pink wattles to dangle beneath his neck. What this someone could possibly have been? My lord hand, the old man said, bowing as deeply as he could without falling. There's been another bird from Castle Black. Mayhaps we could consult privily. There's no need for that. Lord Tywin waved Grand Maester Pycelle to a seat. Tyrion may stay. Ooh, may I? He rubbed his nose and waited. Pycelle cleared his throat, which involved a deal of coughing and hawking. The letter is from the same Bowen Marsh who sent the last, the Castellan. He writes that Lord Mormont has sent word of wildlings moving south in vast numbers. The lands beyond the wall cannot support vast numbers, said Lord Tywin firmly. This warning is not new. This last is, my lord. Mormont sent a bird from the haunted forest to report that he was under attack. More ravens have returned since, but none with letters. This boy in Marsh fears Lord Mormont slain with all his strength. She had rather liked old G.R. Mormont, his gruff manner and talking bird. Is this certain? He asked. It is not, Pycelle admitted, but none of Mormont's men have returned as yet. Marsh fears the wildlings have killed them, but the wall itself may be attacked next. He fumbled his robe and found the paper. Here's his letter, my lord, a plea to all 5 kings. He wants men, as many men as we can send him. 5 kings? His father was annoyed. There's 1 king in Westeros. Those fools in black might try and remember that if they wish his grace to heed them. When you reply, tell him that Renly is dead and the others are traitors and pretenders. No doubt they will be glad to learn it. The wall is a world apart. News oft reaches them late. Pycelle bobbed his head up and down. What shall I tell Marsh concerning the men he begs for? Shall we convene the council? There's no need. The Night's Watch is a pack of thieves, killers, and base-born churls, but it occurs to me that they could prove otherwise, given proper discipline. If Mormont is indeed dead, the Black Brothers must choose a new Lord Commander. Pycelle gave Tyrion a sly glance. An excellent thought, my lord. I know the very man, Janos Slynt. Tyrion liked that notion not at all. The Black Brothers choose their own commander, he reminded them. Lord Slynt is new to the wall. I know, I sent him there. Why should they pick him over a dozen more senior men? There is 1 king in Westeros. Just ask him, he will tell you. Because, his father said in a tone that suggested Tyrion was quite the simpleton, if they do not vote as they are told, their wall will melt before it sees another man. Yes, that would work, Tyrion hitched forward. Janos Slynt is the wrong man, father. We'd do better with the commander of the Shadow Tower, or Eastwatch by the Sea. The commander of the Shadow Tower is a Mallister of Seaguard. Eastwatch is held by an Iron Man. Neither would serve his purposes, Lord Tywin's tone said clear enough. Janos Slynt is a butcher's son, Tyrion reminded his father forcefully. You yourself told me. I recall what I told you. Castle Block is not Harrenhal, however. The Night's Watch is not the King's Council. There's a tool for every task and a task for every tool. Tyrion's anger flashed. Lord Janos is a hollow suit of armor who will sell himself to the highest bidder. I count that a point in his favor. Who is like to bid higher than us? He turned to Pycelle. Send a raven. Write that King Joffrey was deeply saddened to hear of Lord Commander Mormont's death, but regrets that he can spare no man just now, while so many rebels and usurpers remain in the field. Suggest that matters might be quite different once the throne is secure, provided the king has full confidence in the leadership of the Watch. In closing, ask Marsh to pass along his grace's fondest regards to his faithful friend and servant, Lord Janos Slynt. Yes, my lord. Pycelle bobbed his withered head once more. I should write as the hand commands with great pleasure. I should have trimmed his head, not his beard, Tyrion reflected, and Slynt should have gone for a swim with his dear friend Allar Deem. At least he had not made the same foolish mistake with Simon Silvertongue. See there, father? He wanted to shout. See how fast I learned my lessons? Up next, Storm 33, Samwell 2, and then the world went mad.
Mad, I tell you. What madness is this?
What madness is this?
It's been almost a month since I heard that.
Very nice.
Yeah.
Now that is episodes 1 through 7.
Tyrion's tail has not turned dark yet, but you can still see little.
Oh yeah, he's always had those, especially when it comes to singers for some reason.
Yeah, I'm telling you. And apparently little children. They're like monkeys in the zoo, throwing their dung everywhere.
Did they poop up there?
They had to have. Beats me.
Probably easier than carrying it and climbing at the same time.
Yeah, that's true. So, I mean, just to quick refresh us on the last month. So I want to say it was January 2nd, the last time we did a video.
Something like that. No, maybe the 3rd.
3rd, okay, yeah.
5th. 3rd or the 5th, probably, right? Because January 1st was a Monday. Oh, no, you may be right. We may have done the Tuesday one. You may be right.
I can't remember. Well, he might have sent the email on Tuesday for the script, because my when I looked at scripts, the Jamie email got to me on January 2nd.
Okay.
So I'm like, holy crap, has it been that long? And then I'm like, yeah, it's been that long.
Anyway.
What's it say?
They probably have a cattle-filled pocket dimension.
But But yeah, I've really missed. It's been weird not talking to you. So the Lady
Oh,
Thistle, Lizzie, still.
your streams are really good though. I added them to the there's a playlist on my channel called Streams with Old New Dude, and I thought those were so good I just had to put them in there.
I appreciate it. And to the 81 people that watched the first of Lizzie, Lady Thistle, and me, thank you. I don't know who you are, but thank you.
They might only tune into the Wednesdays, so you might need to thank them on Wednesdays.
Well, I think the reason we got so many views on that one is as I was looking back, because I wanted to do just to see what the number was, and I put in capital letters AS, A Song of Ice and Fire, and I'm assuming that might have hit in the algorithm for somebody versus our
could be, but I think Lizzie is also self promoting some too. So
yes, well, I mean, she is world famous, so yeah,
she knows everybody.
Yeah, I know. There's not anyone out there that doesn't know Lizzie. So thank you, Lizzie. So what have you been up to? I mean, it's just been an odd month, but Lizzie watched it 79 times.
That's one way to self-promote, I suppose.
Yes. Oh, yes, she is. Yes.
Not a whole lot. I mean, actually, one of the dogs is going to need ACL surgery, unfortunately. Don't look at me. It's Leo, the raccoon panda.
Uh-oh.
Your favorite.
I know.
But
adorable,
honestly, he's everybody's favorite. Leo's like everybody's favorite. Everybody like sees this picture who meets him because he's kind of he's a sweetheart. He's obviously he's the one that's not getting yelled at all the time. So you can tell from the live stream. His only problem, his only bad quality, is that he believes that he's a shepherd and a boss, and his half brother is every bit as large and athletic as he is, and so and unruly. And Leo knows when he's being unruly, and so every time that Sammy gets excited and starts to do something like mount another dog or something, Leo will discipline him. He'll knock him off of dogs. He'll growl at him. He'll bite at him as shepherds do, as they would bite at cattle or sheep or whatever, right?
Right.
And occasionally Sammy will get pissed enough that the two of them will then go at it, and and he's sometimes he does that when he doesn't need to. Like, it's okay for Sammy to get excited and want to play sometimes, but that's like the only thing that he does wrong. Like, yeah. he's pretty perfect. I love how you're like, my dog's red flag is. And anyway, yeah, and I actually so the place where I used to board them and get them groomed when I boarded them there, the person, one of the people who used to be the groomer there, was the receptionist at the specialty vet that does the ACL surgery.
Mm-hmm.
And so when I was making the appointment, she's like, wait a minute, we have you in record with Mia the golden retriever. And I described Leo. I said, his name's Leo. He's a black Tri-Aussie. He's so, but he's fluffier than other Aussies. He's so fluffy that you can't even see his ears. He looks like a panda bear. And she goes, wait a minute, I know those dogs. She goes, I used to be the groomer at Anapals. These are my babies. I love those dogs. I groom my own dogs. It's so expensive, says Charles. Yep. True.
Yeah. My dog's just rubbing in the dirt. That's it.
Yeah. The Aussies kind of need a certain kind of specific haircut, but the right. Golden's kind of nothing to do ourselves. So I take the Aussies in. once a
Well,
month.
Drew, Chris's friend is kind of responsible for the lady, the rot mix. She's got enough mix in her, border collie, cocker spaniel, something, that her tail and her ears are a little wild. So
Yeah,
he's in charge of trying to keep her kind of trimmed down. But she's a yard dog and an inside dog. So I mean, she's
sure.
fine. You bathe her, and then the next day she's wallowing in the mud. So I mean, it is what it is.
But overall, I'm doing pretty well. Um, I feel like I started taking this hyaluronic acid 3 months ago. It finally feels like it's starting to work. Like my joints aren't hurting anymore. Um, it took a while, but
Mhm.
I was feeling my age, and I was like, how come I can cure my dog's arthritis and not my own? What the fuck is it? Sorry, what the heck is in this? What the
You've
heck
been
is in
hanging
this
out with
powder?
Lady Fistful.
What the heck is in this powder? So I was like, what the heck is in this powder, this connecting powder? And started looking at it. I was like, oh, hyaluronic acid. And I give my cats myself too. Coughs up here. so so anyway, I started taking this like almost 3 months now, and it took forever before it started to. Oh yeah, fuck yeah, feel the same way, brother. Redacted. Anyway, I I uh I was like, why? Because like the last couple dogs when all my dogs seem to get to like 13 and then have problems, but 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 they had like zero arthritis the last couple of dogs because I give them this connectin powder, and I was like, well, why can I eliminate all their arthritis and not my own? So I figured I had to do
Start
something.
stealing their stuff, man. Hey, what
Exactly.
are you doing? I'm snorting the
Charles
dog's
takes
medicine.
Charles takes highly erotic acid.
You can tell
Anyway,
we all know each other.
anyway, point is that I was feeling my age, and I'm mostly not now. I mean, still my muscles get more tired than they did when I was younger, but at least my joints are better now.
Yeah. I'm having some sleep problems. I talked to the book club people.
Oh yeah,
Here lately, I've been getting like 4 hours sleep a night and waking up several times. It used to be like 2 times, then it went to 3 times a night, and
try
now
try. You take magnesium?
I don't think so.
No, I take magnesium at night. That can be good. Another one that can be good is glycine.
Hmm.
Um, if you're having trouble getting to sleep initially, you could take oleamide. That's the stuff that the body produces when it's.
Yeah, right, Pod.
I don't know any of you people. That's the stuff that your body produces when it's sleep deprived is oleamide.
Hmm.
Um, but the amount that you need to take is like 20 times what the manufacturers tell you should take, or
Yeah,
maybe only like 5 or 10 times, but it's at least 5 times what they tell you should take.
right.
I don't know why, because so if you read reviews, people are like, this doesn't do anything. I'm like, yeah, because that's not actually the dosage that people need.
Right.
Um, but the first time I took olamide, I'd been battling with insomnia. Now I was very sleep deprived, so that was probably part of it. But
Mm.
I took the olamide and got ready for bed. Brushed my teeth and got ready for bed. Started getting to bed. I started to reach to plug my phone in, and I fell asleep before I
Point.
I also
That reminds me of
initially.
I've been watching some cat videos. Just every now and then you need to watch a cat video, and some of those videos are the cat is going from one bed to the other one, and like halfway it goes doink. Oh my
So
goodness, man.
I do a ton of weird things to try and help my sleep, but the ones that are probably most probably the most helpful are probably in terms of healthy and improving the quality of your sleep, probably magnesium and glycine.
Mhm.
Um,
Well,
you need a lot of glycine though. I buy powder. I buy powder for that. I actually take multiple spoonfuls of the powder. It tastes like sugar.
mm,
It's basically protein, It's the most basic amino acid, so it's your body's basically going to treat it like protein. Oregano works too, says Charles. Yeah, there's lots of things out there that people will swear by. Oh, alcohol and well, THC is actually basically the same as alamide. So the cannabinoid receptors in the brain are what, and yes, I definitely was experiencing some hallucinations at times from it when I was first taking it. Now my body got used to it, but the cannabinoid receptor in the brain is actually, we didn't evolve a cannabinoid receptor so we could get stoned. We evolved it so that we could kill off all of our anxiety and pain as we get sufficient sleep deprivation.
Mm-hmm.
So most of the effects positive effects you see from THC, you also see from alamide.
I only had one hallucination. This when I tried acid when I was in the Navy. All right, short story. All right, there's me, and this is back when I was a player. If you've seen the Navy picture, you know I didn't look like this back then. But it was me and two girls, and I had tried pot one time when I was 16. I hated it, made me throw up. Never tried it again. So we're going out into the like shopping, the movies, making a day of it. Going to end up at the bar. I'm hoping that we end up somewhere else later. So before we leave the base, she pulls out this one little white piece of paper, and I know what it was. I mean, that the guys and everybody in the class had been doing it, and she's like, "Stick out your tongue." I'm like, peer pressure, but I'm trying to get something, so I stick out my tongue, and so we leave. They're prepared. They both bring sunglasses. There's an art place at the same shopping center that the movie theater is. So they go in there and they're watching TV at the paintings because the paintings are moving.
Sorry, James's comment was pretty funny.
Yeah. But I didn't have any sunglasses. I'd hate to think what I look like, but it wasn't one.
So it was acid.
Yeah, it was acid. Yeah. One little piece of paper. No, it was three. And I had never done it before in my life. So long story short, we never made it to where I thought we were going to go for that day. So I get back to my room. It's pitch black. As soon as I go in there, I drop straight to the ground because it freaked me out. I crawl to my bed and I put my hand up and there's somebody in my bed. So I'm like, what? So I crawl back out. No, I go out to the hallway. I stand up, but look, it's my room number. I got the key. It opens the door. So open the door shuts. I drop back down to the ground again. I go to my bed. I reach. There's somebody in my bed. I'm like, crap. I do this like 3 or 4 times. I go back out, come back in, and finally I'm like, damn it, that's my bed. So I push it. It was my books for the week. My school books. It was an A school in San Diego, so I mean it was school basically. So I shoved them out of the way. It was books. I'm like, okay. So I lay there, and then I'm looking up. And then there's God and all these angels making a circle, looking down at me going, should we kill him? And then, oh, I'm not done yet. And then off to the right, there is the Jolly Green Giant. Okay. As big as the Jolly Green Giant is, his foot is underneath my shoulder. When he moves his leg, my shoulder moves. I mean, I was awake for like 2.5 days. Never again. Was this
Fair
like?
Enough.
That's quite a
trip down Lake Shore Drive.
Yeah. So I mean, I can laugh at it like crazy now, but back then when that happened, I was pissed. After I came back down to Mother Earth, but I did not try to hook up with those 2 girls ever again.
Well, this is just the mild hallucinations one gets from sleep deprivation that I'm talking about. Not
yeah. No,
like
I know you said hallucinations.
LSD kind of stuff.
That's what popped in my head. I mean, I'm trying to be.
No, yeah, I know. I'm just saying we're talking about the mild stuff you get from being sleep deprived, not.
Yeah.
Not
well, I knew
it
was a funny story. So I mean.
Yeah, it was. That was very funny. Yeah. All right, we're way over time here.
Yeah. Well, should we kill him? Hey, put that on a t-shirt. But all right. with Richard and me, it is Mondays and Fridays, and Wednesdays is me, Lizzie, Lady Thistle. We do theories. This coming Wednesday is Alaris, Sorella, and I forget what the other one is, but my first time with acid.
It was literally on Lakeshore Drive.
Those were the days. Those were the days. But
Man, we
we
might get
appreciate
flagged
y'all.
on this one.
Yeah, man, they ain't even reviewing us. What are they doing?
So, what does it matter? It's not like we're monetizing.
Yeah, well, I mean, all my videos are not allowed for kids anyway.
Is Danny pregnant? Is the other one, or was Danny?
Oh, yeah,
Was Danny pregnant? Because I don't think since the miscarriage, I don't think she's had any opportunities.
And then whose was it too?
Well, that's a good point.
Dario, maybe.
She probably was sleeping with both her husband and her lover. That's probably true.
I would hope so. I mean, the men do it all the time. Why couldn't she?
Sure.
But all right, it is Friday, and on every Friday, I like to tell everybody to have a safe and fun weekend. We care about you. We want to see you here Monday. But thank you again for joining us. Thank you again for Richard for doing this. Sorry it took so long. And y'all be good. See y'all Monday. Take care. Bye. Bye, Richard.
Have a good one. Bye.
You too.